What if the woman you've been dreaming about isn't real? What if she's a reflection of your deepest desires, fears, and illusions? Carl Jung, the man who mapped the human soul, discovered something shocking: that the women men fall for often don't exist outside their own mind. This isn't about romance, it's about the anima, a hidden force that shapes every man's perception of love, women, and even himself. Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875, a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. While Freud was fixated on childhood trauma and sexuality, Jung believed the psyche held far deeper mysteries. He introduced concepts that now form the foundation of analytical psychology: the collective unconscious, archetypes, and most importantly for our discussion, the anima and shadow. Jung believed our conscious mind is only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lies a vast realm, the unconscious. And beneath that lies the collective unconscious, a universal layer shared by all humans, filled with primal patterns and symbols known as archetypes. Archetypes are not personalities. They are forces, patterns, blueprints that shape how we think, feel, and behave. They live in stories, myths, and dreams. The archetype of the mother, the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, and the anima, the feminine image inside the male unconscious. Every man carries within him the eternal image of woman. This image is not built from his experiences with women. It's something deeper. Jung called it the anima, the unconscious feminine aspect of a man. She is not a real woman. She is a psychological presence, an emotional, symbolic, almost mythical figure. She appears in men's dreams, art, and projections. She whispers moods, feelings, and desires. And she's incredibly dangerous when ignored or misunderstood. When a man sees a woman and feels instantly drawn to her, even obsessed, it might not be her at all. It might be his own anima, his inner fantasy, projected onto her like a film on a blank screen. Jung warned, where love reigns, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. But when the anima is unconscious, the man may confuse love with control, obsession, or idealization. Have you ever met a woman and instantly felt she was the one, even before knowing her? Have you ever put a woman on a pedestal, only to have the illusion shatter later? This is the anima at work. Jung called this process projection, when we unconsciously project an inner image onto someone else, treating them as if they are that image. In a man's case, he often projects his anima onto women, expecting them to fulfill a deep emotional or even spiritual need. He doesn't see them as they are. He sees them as the savior, the mother, the temptress, the dream girl. And when reality doesn't match that projection, pain follows. This, Jung realized, is one of the most dangerous illusions a man faces in love. He may become obsessed with women not because of them, but because of his own lack of integration. He is chasing a piece of himself in the outside world. And here lies the dark discovery. Men are often not in love with women. They're in love with their own projections, often shaped by pain, longing, or childhood wounds. Chaos in feminine form. Jung did not romanticize the anima. He warned that the anima has two faces: the creative muse, inspiring, nurturing, emotionally rich; the destructive temptress, manipulative, irrational, chaotic. When unintegrated, the anima becomes dark. She appears in a man's dreams as a siren, a witch, a seductress. She lures him toward obsession, emotional dependence, or destructive love. Jung wrote, "The anima is responsible for many of the misunderstandings between men and women. She behaves like a seductive enchantress, always a bit unreal, always just out of reach. These are not real women. These are symbols, forces inside a man's psyche. And when he doesn't understand them, he may blame women for emotional turmoil that's really coming from within." Real-life examples: the illusion of the perfect woman. A man falls madly in love with a woman he barely knows. She seems mysterious, ethereal, like a dream. But months later, he sees she's just human. He feels betrayed. But who betrayed him? She never claimed to be his fantasy. Another man becomes addicted to emotional drama. He's drawn to women who treat him coldly or keep him guessing. He thinks it's passion. Jung would say he's possessed by the negative anima, a feminine energy he has not yet owned within himself. These patterns repeat until a man wakes up and says, "Wait, what am I really chasing, and why?" Next part 2. Women, Two Worlds, Emma Jung and Tony Wolfe. To understand Jung's view of the feminine, we must look at his personal life. His psychological theories were not just academic, they were lived. Carl Jung was married to Emma Jung, a strong and intellectually curious woman. But in his later years, he also formed a deep, complex, and controversial relationship with Tony Wolfe, his patient-turned-collaborator and soul companion. Emma represented the traditional grounding feminine force, devoted wife, mother of 5, and supporter of Jung's work. Tony, on the other hand, embodied something else entirely, the mystical, emotional, spiritually intense woman. She was Jung's anima projection come to life, a living muse who inspired much of his work on the feminine psyche. Jung didn't see these women as simply two lovers. He believed they represented different archetypal dimensions of femininity. Emma, the nurturing mother, the Queen Tony, the sorceress, the muse, the lover. This personal tension mirrored Jung's inner struggle, how to reconcile the real woman with the inner image of the feminine. It was not easy, and it led him to one of his most powerful ideas. The true integration of the feminine is an inner process, not a romantic pursuit. Carl Jung believed that the anima appears in stages throughout a man's development. Each stage reflects a deeper psychological integration and also a potential trap. Eve, the instinctual woman. She represents the biological pull toward women as caretakers, mothers, and objects of sexual attraction. Helen, the romantic woman. She's the object of desire, beauty, and ideal love. Mary, the spiritual woman. She brings peace, compassion, and wisdom. Sophia, the wise woman, the final stage. She represents inner wisdom, the fully integrated feminine within the man himself. Many men never progress past stage 2. They fall for beauty and charm, chasing the Helen archetype their entire lives. They don't see the real woman, they see their inner image. Jung warned that this keeps men stuck in a fantasy loop, always seeking the next thrill, the next perfect woman, never realizing the completion they seek is actually internal. In Jung's world, every light has a shadow. The feminine has a nurturing, life-giving aspect, but also a destructive, chaotic one. Jung often referred to dark mythological figures like Lilith, Kali, or the sirens as symbols of the destructive feminine. These figures don't nurture, they devour. They seduce only to entrap. They represent emotional manipulation, seduction, confusion, and control. A man who doesn't face his own inner chaos is especially vulnerable to these archetypes. He becomes enthralled, submissive, even addicted to the feminine in her darker forms. These are not real women. They are projections, manifestations of a man's unresolved fears, desires, and weaknesses. And here's the danger. When a man does not confront the dark anima inside himself, he will always see women as either goddesses or demons, never as whole human beings. In dreams, Jung found the anima to be extremely active. She might appear as a seductive woman in a red dress, a disembodied voice whispering, a cold, distant figure calling from across a lake, a dying girl, a child, a witch, or a radiant queen. These are not dreams about real women. They are messages from the psyche, clues to the inner relationship a man has with his feminine side. Jung taught that dreams reveal our inner truth. If a man repeatedly dreams of being rejected, manipulated, or seduced by mysterious women, it often means his anima is unconscious and uncontrolled. He must pay attention, not to change women, but to change himself. Who is she really? What does she want from me in this dream? What part of me is she showing me? So what must a man do with this dark discovery? How can he stop projecting, idealizing, or fearing the feminine? Jung gave the answer: integrate the anima. This means recognizing emotional moods as part of yourself, not something triggered by women. Listening to your dreams, especially when they involve feminine figures. Owning your sensitivity, creativity, and emotionality, qualities traditionally labeled feminine. Letting go of the fantasy woman and learning to relate to real women, with flaws, emotions, and complexity. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Many men think they're in love, when in fact, they're in a projection. They say, she completes me. That's the anima. They say, I can't live without her. That's the projection. They say, she's the most amazing woman in the world. Is she? Or is she an unconscious fantasy? Real love begins when the projection ends. When a man can see a woman not as a dream but as a human being, flawed, real, unpredictable, then true intimacy becomes possible. Jung's dark discovery was this: most men don't fall in love with women. They fall in love with what they lack in themselves. Until that lack is filled from within, no relationship will ever feel complete. Reflective questions. Do you really see the woman in front of you, or just a fantasy built in your mind? Are your emotions truly about her, or are they revealing something in you? What part of the feminine scares you, and why? What if the love you seek from women is actually a love you're denying yourself? One of Jung's most startling warnings was about anima possession. This is not literal demon possession, it's psychological. When a man is anima possessed, his inner feminine has taken control of his emotions, his thoughts, and his sense of identity. He becomes emotionally volatile, addicted to romantic highs, dependent on female approval, afraid of confrontation, overly sentimental or moody, lost in fantasy or depression. He might say, "I don't know who I am without her. I can't live unless she loves me. She's my everything." Jung believed this was a serious spiritual crisis. The man has not integrated his anima, he's been overrun by it. He becomes a puppet to unconscious drives, reacting rather than acting, pleading rather than leading. He lives not from strength, but from emotional chaos. In today's world, Jung's warnings have become even more relevant. Why? Because many men today are raised without strong male role models, are disconnected from ancient rites of passage, are told that masculine traits are toxic, are drowning in entertainment that glorifies romantic obsession. As a result, they overcompensate. They worship women. They chase the dream of being chosen. They think a girlfriend or wife will finally give them purpose. But Jung would say, "You've made her your god, and no woman can carry that weight." The modern man doesn't need more seduction tricks or dating hacks. He needs inner transformation. What does Jung mean by integrating the anima? He means becoming whole. Imagine your psyche as two poles: the masculine, logic, focus, discipline, structure, courage; the feminine, emotion, intuition, connection, receptivity, creativity. Most men are told to suppress the feminine within them. But when they do, that repressed part doesn't disappear. It turns into fantasy, projection, or emotional addiction. Jung says, to become truly masculine, you must embrace the feminine within. That's the dark discovery. You don't become stronger by avoiding your emotional self. You become stronger by owning it, mastering it, understanding it. Let's break this down into real, practical steps men can take today to start this Jungian transformation. 1. Track your emotional patterns. Write down moments when you feel overly emotional, moody, or dependent on female attention. These are signs the anima is active and unconscious. 2. Explore your dreams involving women, especially unknown women, are messages from the anima. Start a dream journal. Look for patterns, symbols, and emotional clues. 3. Detach from idealization. Stop placing women on pedestals. Watch your language. Do you say, "She's perfect" or "She's the one"? That's projection talking, not truth. 4. Cultivate the inner feminine. Engage in creativity, art, music, writing, and solitude. These open doors to your emotional self, your inner anima. 5. Strengthen your masculine core, set boundaries. Develop purpose. Face discomfort. Learn to stand alone. You need a strong masculine vessel to contain and integrate the feminine energies. 6. Shadow work. Ask, what do I fear about women? What do I resent? What do I secretly desire but can't admit? Bring these shadows into awareness. Jung did not believe the anima was evil. Far from it. She is a guide, a bridge to the unconscious, a symbol of the soul. If integrated, the anima becomes a muse of creativity, a source of emotional intelligence, a doorway to spiritual growth, a voice of deep inner knowing. But if unintegrated, she becomes a tormentor, a seductress, a manipulator, a destroyer of the self. The choice is yours: projection or integration, illusion or truth, fantasy or wholeness. Carl Jung spent his life urging men to look inward. His message wasn't about blaming women. It was about understanding yourself so deeply that no woman could ever break you, and no fantasy could ever blind you. He said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and who you truly are is not half a soul looking for completion in another. You are a full being, masculine and feminine, meant to walk the world in balance. Somewhere in your dreams, she calls to you. Not the woman in the real world, but the woman in your soul. She is the pain you've avoided, the love you've denied, the truth you've hidden. You can chase her in women's eyes forever, or you can turn inward and meet her face to face in the mirror of your own psyche. Jung's dark discovery was not meant to scare you, it was meant to awaken you. The question is, will you awaken? What anima stage do you believe you're in? Have you ever confused fantasy with real love? What part of your emotional life have you suppressed the most? What would your dreams say if you truly listened? What you've just uncovered is only the beginning. Carl Jung's dark discovery about women wasn't just about relationships. It was a gateway to a much deeper transformation, a path to mastering your mind, your emotions, and your destiny. But if you think this was intense, wait until you see what's coming next. In the next video, we'll explore why men fear their own power and how that fear keeps you stuck, broken, and silent. It's raw, it's uncomfortable, but it will change how you see yourself forever. So if you're ready to keep going deeper, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me on this journey into the soul. Because of the truth, the most dangerous thing in the world is a man who finally knows who he is.